welcome. I'm doing shout outs. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Alex. Thank you for being here. Shout out to London. Thank you. Hi, welcome. Shout out to Joseph. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Give this live stream a thumbs up. Shout out to Jennifer. Thank you so much, London. Hi everyone. Thank you for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Happy Saturday. Shout out to Daniela, or Daniel, sorry. Shout out to Daniel. Shout out to Happy Pre-Thanksgiving. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Hilal. Shout out to Nazwa. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Aura. Shout out to Izzy. Shout out to Jeff. Shout out to Hayden. Shout out to Amelia. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying the shout outs. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Uriana. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Tiny. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Mesa. Shout out to Yusuf. Shout out to Elsie. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Nada. Thank you for subscribing. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying these shout outs. I hope we can get to 100 likes. Shout out to Rosanna. Shout out to Ariba. Shout out to Tommy. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Marius. Shout out to Baljeet. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Rosie. Shout out to Lila. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Amna. Shout out to Lila. Or oh, I missed it. Laya. Shout out to Sage. Shout out to Miriam. Shout out to Mateo. Shout out to Monroe. Shout out to Zunaira. Shout out to Naya. Shout out to Ali Reza. Shout out to Axel. Shout out to Charlie. Shout out to Kylie. Or Kaylee, sorry. Shout out to Elodie. Shout out to Thiva. Shout out to Georgia. Shout out to these people. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. I would truly appreciate it. We're at 34 likes. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Valentina. Shout out to Reina. Oh no, how do you spell Reina? Reina, can you put your name again, please? Renya, thank you. Thank you for writing your name again. Shout out to, oh, Molly's. Shout out to Evie. Shout out to Farah. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Remington. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Tessa. Shout out to Elena. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Gracie. Shout out to Iowick. Shout out to Julian. Shout out to Owen. Shout out to Aya, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Yosra. Shout out to Indy. Shout out to Dominicus. Shout out to Lisette. Shout out to Dre. Shout out to Cecilia. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Himat. Happy birthday. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Elias. Shout out to Benedicta. Happy birthday. Shout out to Aniston. Shout out to Molly's. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Liam. Shout out to Trinity. Excuse me. Shout out to TW Enid. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Kane. Shout out to Mavis. Shout out to Nevaeh. Excuse me. Shout out to Ness. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Zuzu. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Nuria. Shout out to Marley. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Kareem. No, how do you spell that? Kareem? Shout out to Poppy. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to these people. Thank you for being here. Give this live stream a thumbs up. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Hilal. Shout out to Joel. Shout out to Daphne. Shout out to Gabby. Shout out to Chase. Shout out to Ayat. Shout out to Blake. Shout out to Zachary. Shout out to Yoriko. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Melissa. Shout out to Malik. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Tyra. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Nuria. Shout out to Kaden. Oh, how do you spell Kaden? Kaden. Shout out to Sadie. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Jamie. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Quinn. Shout out to Karen. Shout out to Saley. Sorry. Shout out to Maggie. Shout out to Joseph. Shout out to Ben. Shout out to Milad. Shout out to Sayuzi. Shout out to Taylor. Shout out to Amina. Give this live stream a thumbs up. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Nura. Shout out to Annie. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Shonda. Shout out to Faye. Shout out to Celine. Shout out to Mikhail. Can you spell your name again? Was it Mikhail? Oh yeah, Mikhail. Thank you for writing your name again. Shout out to Sapphire. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Ramin. Shout out to Audrina. Shout out to Meredith. Shout out to Rumi. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to all these people. Give it a thumbs up if you're enjoying this live stream. Like and subscribe. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to Sion. Shout out to Nyla. Shout out to Jubilee. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Blakely? Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Nishkala. Shout out to Kamal. Shout out to Evie. Shout out to Naya. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Brock. Shout out to Mariah. We're 1 like away. Oh, yay, we got 100 likes. Like and subscribe if you like these shout outs. Shout out to Poppy. Shout out to Felix. Shout out to Abdul. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Braylon. Shout out to Salma. Shout out to Chloe. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Billy. Shout out to Kuliat. Shout out to Khadijah. Shout out to Angela. Shout out to Lauren. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Omira. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Meredith. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Keisha. Shout out to Rylan. Shout out to Adriana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lanique. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Cassidy. Shout out to Millie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Jamie. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying the shout outs. Let's try to get to 200 likes. Give this live stream a like. I would truly appreciate it. We're at 128 likes. Let's try to get to 200, please. Thank you for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Rosé. Shout out to Diana. Shout out to Simran. Shout out to Shamaya. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Kelvin. Shout out to Levi. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Daria. Shout out to Kimberly. Shout out to Michaela. Thank you for subscribing. Like and subscribe if you like these shout outs. Shout out to Lacey. Shout out to Chantel. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Billy. Shout out to Gala. Shout out to Georgia. Shout out to Hazel. Shout out to Sivan. Shout out to Ivana. Shout out to Nada. Shout out to Lola. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Steve. Shout out to Samuela. Shout out to Suli Yu. Thank you for subscribing. Oops, I messed up. Suli Yu. Shout out to Marival. Shout out to Nico. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Miwa. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Julietta. Shout out to Jade. Shout out to Ricky. Shout out to Craig. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Melina. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jaquisha. Shout out to Mariah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Elsie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Millie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Elsie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Shona. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mads. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lewis. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rayan. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ida. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Natalia. Shout out to Hebe or Heb. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Noemi. Shout out to Lena. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. If you're enjoying this live stream, give it a thumbs up. Let's try to get to 200 likes. We're at 158. We're halfway there. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Maya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Pearl. Shout out to Ranel. Shout out to Aaron. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Isha. Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Lena. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Milan. Shout out to Belle. Shout out to Iman. Shout out to Lucas. Shout out to Roshan. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Milad. Shout out to Marina. Shout out to, was it Vilma? Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Jake. Shout out to Aline. Shout out to Tiara. Shout out to Ninan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Liz. Shout out to Jessie. Shout out to Shayla. Shout out to Azra. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Islam. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Jean. Shout out to Connie. Shout out to Bentley. Shout out to Dominic. Shout out to Gio. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Kirsty. Shout out to Boris. Shout out to Zorka. Shout out to Larkin. Shout out to Henley. Shout out to Nada. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Zyra. Shout out to Javion. Shout out to Jane. Shout out to Fran. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Arlie. Or Arlie, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these live streams. We're almost at 200 likes. We're at 185 likes. We're almost there. Thank you for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Hadley. Shout out to Mira. Shout out to Inez. Shout out to Rishi. Shout out to Ollie. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Enya. Shout out to Rain. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to whoops, I messed up. Shout out to Mimi. Shout out to Yana. Shout out to Ryanite. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Michaela. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Imogen. We're almost at 200 likes. Only 3 more likes. Shout out to Peter. Shout out to Morgan. Shout out to Krisha. Yay, we're at 200 likes. Thank you so much for liking. Shout out to Annie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Evelina. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Rel. Shout out to Victor. Shout out to Abigail. Shout out to Masha. Shout out to Rosalie. Shout out to Kelvin. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Dash. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Brody. Shout out to Donna. Or Dana, sorry. Shout out to Myra. Oops. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Justin. Shout out to Sharon. Or Sharon, sorry. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Samantha. Thank you for subscribing. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying the shout outs. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Samari. Shout out to Clayton. Shout out to Radha. Shout out to Solly. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Matilda. Shout out to Exon. Shout out to Leonardo. Shout out to Sammy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Patillo. Shout out to Coral. Shout out to Tala. Shout out to these people. Thank you for being here. On to the next page. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying these shout outs. Let's try to get to 300 likes. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Miguel. Shout out to, I missed it. Asil. Shout out to Arlie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Pollyanna. Shout out to Carla. Shout out to Yasmani. out to Nicole. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mick. MC. Shout out to Shauna. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Joy. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Heather. Oops. Shout out to Malika. Shout out to Sumaya. Shout out to Addie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Belma. Shout out to Milagros. Shout out to Darcy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Scarlett. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zyra. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Alessia, sorry. Shout out to Ezra. Give this live stream a like. We're almost at 300 likes. Shout out to Eric. Shout out to Hadia. Shout out to Robert. Shout out to Samantha. Shout out to Nella. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Lynn. Shout out to Brooklyn. Oh no, I spelled that wrong. Shout out to, oops. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Helen. Shout out to Medina. Shout out to Kathleen. Shout out to Marika. Shout out to Gary. Shout out to Brooke, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Blake. Shout out to these people. Give it a thumbs up if you're enjoying this live stream. We're only 20 away from 300 likes. Thank you so much for being here. On to the next page. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. $19 away from 300 likes. We're almost there. 20 away. Shout out to Cami. Shout out to Rosie. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Theo. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Honey. Shout out to Fernanda. Shout out to Marlena. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Arizona. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Amira. Shout out to Jackson. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying the shout outs. We're almost at 300 likes. Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Day. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Ava. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Adelaide. Shout out to Arlie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Cody. Shout out to Julietta. Shout out to Brianna. Oh no, how do you spell your name? Brianna. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Alanis. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Macy. Shout out to Declan. Shout out to Addie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lindasia, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Joyce. Shout out to Lucy, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Janet. Or Jeanette, sorry. Shout out to Dennis. Shout out to Cool Kid. Whoops, Cool Kid. Shout out to Priscilla. Shout out to Nathania. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to John. Shout out to Carson. Shout out to Amelia. We're 5 likes away from 300. Shout out to Anel. Shout out to Estefania. Oops, how do you spell that? Oh, thank you. Shout out to Poppy. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Brittany. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Give this live stream a like if you are enjoying the shout outs. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Sharon. Shout out to Diana, sorry. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to, is it Sylvain? Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Leon. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Amali. Shout out to Bowie. Thank you for subscribing. I wonder if we could get to 400 likes. Give it a like if you are enjoying these live streams. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Jay. Shout out to Nina. Shout out to, I already said Jay. Shout out to Jay. Shout out to Karen. Shout out to Maddie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kushbu. Shout out to Zainab. Or Zanab, sorry. Shout out to Bradley. Shout out to Mitchie. Shout out to Hala. Shout out to Freya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Manat. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Winter. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Selma. Give this live stream a like. Let's try to get 400 likes. Shout out to Kensley. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Peyton. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to JC. Shout out to Brad. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Fardis. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Vox. Shout out to Colin. No, it's Colin. I'm so sorry. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Alistair. Shout out to Janarly. Shout out to Caroline. Shout out to Finley. Shout out to Coral. Shout out to Coben. Shout out to Steven. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Reese. Shout out to Cade. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Give this live stream a thumbs up. Let's try to get to 400 likes. Thank you for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. We're almost at 400 likes. Only 79 more likes. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Nevaeh. Shout out to Torian. Shout out to Bella. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Melody. Shout out to Cosmo. Shout out to Salim. Shout out to Kaya. Shout out to Jason. Shout out to Gianna. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Izam. Shout out to Hensley. Shout out to Benson. Shout out to Mika. Shout out to Laxmi. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Roita. Shout out to Norma. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Bana. Shout out to Charlie. Shout out to Annalie. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Angel Dust. Shout out to Valeria. Like and subscribe if you like my content. Also like this live stream. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Jessley. Shout out to Nevada. Shout out to Arlie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Hari. Shout out to Harlem. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Polly. Shout out to Ayla. Shout out to Samar. Shout out to Ali. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying the shout outs. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to Jenner. Or Jenner, sorry. Shout out to Baku. Shout out to Haley. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Dylan. Shout out to Alistair, sorry. Shout out to Caro. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Victoria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to T. Kamola. Shout out to CG. Shout out to Jansu. Shout out to Emerson. Thank you for subscribing. We're almost at 400 likes, only 60 more likes. On to the next page. If you are enjoying the live stream, give it a thumbs up. Also like and subscribe if you like my content. Like and subscribe, please. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Josie. Shout out to Harriet. Thank you for subscribing, Harriet. Shout out to Demi. Shout out to Bree, sorry. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Angela. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Becca. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to thank you so much, Brian. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Lizzie. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to Sabrina. Shout out to Diociani. Oh no, how do you spell that? I messed up. Shout out to Yago. Shout out to Mesa. Shout out to Jamie. Shout out to Ismael. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Jack. Shout out to Demetra. Shout out to Adelaide. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Martha. Shout out to Edgy. Shout out to Curly Yam. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Isa, or Asa, sorry. Shout out to Hallie. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you're enjoying. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to Joy. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Isabel. Shout out to Eremen. Shout out to Martha. Shout out to Aina, sorry. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Tristan. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Hiraldi. Shout out to Miley. Shout out to Esteban. Shout out to Celine. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying this live stream. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to Dior. Shout out to Rayan. Shout out to Valentine. Or Valentine, sorry. Thank you so much for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Christy. Shout out to Tara. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Omira. Shout out to Hadley. Shout out to Asan. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Ruth. Shout out to Farid. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Cass. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Deli. Shout out to Miriam. Give this live stream a thumbs up if you are enjoying the live stream. We're almost there to 400 likes. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Malik. Shout out to Hope. Shout out to Koya. Shout out to Winter. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Lucia. We're almost at 400 likes. Only 41 more likes. Shout out to Indira. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Sierra, sorry. Shout out to Lena. Shout out to Amelia. Happy birthday. Shout out to Miley. Or Millie, sorry. Shout out to Aliana. We're almost at 400 likes. I hope you can give this live stream a thumbs up. Shout out to Leonard. Shout out to Jenna. We're almost at 400 likes. Give it a thumbs up if you are enjoying this live stream. Shout out to Kinga. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Saina. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Kobe. Shout out to Yasmani. Shout out to Yvette. Shout out to Raymond. Shout out to River. Shout out to A or I. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Wilco. Oh, it's my birds. They're chirping really loud. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Divine. And shout out to Ava. Okay, on to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. If you are enjoying this live stream, give it a thumbs up. We're almost at 400 likes. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Aliana. Shout out to Envy. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Liliana. Oops. Shout out to Esme. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Sean. Shout out to Marin. Shout out to, Oh, Kiara, thank you so much for showing me how to pronounce your name. Thank you. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Amelia. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to James. Shout out to Fiza. Shout out to Andrew. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Caitlin. Thank you so much for showing me how to pronounce your name, Caitlin. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Meredith. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to V. Shout out to Gracie. Shout out to Esperanza. Shout out to Irene. Shout out to Leo. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Zenobia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Abby. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Liz. Shout out to Curly Am. Shout out to Kanzu. Shout out to Julie. Shout out to Ania. Shout out to Vaughn. Let's get 400 likes. We're almost there. Shout out to, I got you, Kylie and Savannah over here. Shout out to Rita. Shout out to Hadia. Shout out to Rosie. Shout out to Corey. Shout out to Jamaldine. Shout out to Miley. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Azul. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Jules. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Asher. Shout out to Miss Circle. Shout out to Julia Rose. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Loina. Okay. Shout out to these people. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I have to get going somewhere, but I think I will do another live stream later today. So subscribe so you know when I'm gonna live stream again. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you soon. I will be live streaming today, so subscribe so you know when I start live streaming. Have a great day or have a great night. I'll see you very soon. Bye.